dude, those were the two best years of my law enforcement career by far. Just finally glad to see some justice being served for this case. Like, that's my number one. I'll never forget that moment.
What's going on, fam? Get ready to meet a remarkable individual joining us all the way from the cold state of Delaware. My man, Sergeant Gene Reid. Look, Gene is currently working in the Professional Standards Unit, also known as Internal Affairs. But here's the deal. Gene's humility belies a wealth of accomplishments. Behind his unassuming demeanor lies a decorated career. He has a PhD in philosophy. He's published multiple books, and he's the founder of Reid Training Solutions, offering leadership development and the host of the Science of Self-Development podcast. Make no mistake about it. Gene's insights carry weight, especially as we dive into the challenges of today's disciplinary system. So, without further ado, let's welcome Gene to Internal Affairs, a police podcast. Let's go. Okay, here we are, man. Look, we are going all the way to Delaware, which, by the way, of course, I've heard of Delaware, but you got to tell me, bro, how cold is it? Because I know it's cold. Don't try to act like it's not.
I'm telling you, I'm about to put some sunscreen on. It's 46 degrees today, and we're feeling good. Don't judge us out here. It gets, it gets a little cold.
You know what? I can probably speak for behalf of many Californians, but when we think of Delaware, we definitely think it's got to be like 20 or minus 10 or something along those lines, because it just sounds cold. And hey, bro, I appreciate you, coming on the show. You and I met on LinkedIn, and it was bromance from the get-go, only because we share a lot of experiences. We'll be getting into that. You do work a Professional Standards Unit, also known as Internal Affairs, and we're going to have a really good talk with Internal Affairs. However, let me give a quick shout-out to all my sponsors real quick. So first of all, Savage Training Group. I am a law enforcement instructor for STG, and we have an Internal Affairs Officer-Involved Shooting course that we teach with James Tacchini, who's my partner, and there's a host of other courses, as we like to say. It's definitely modern training. It's not death by PowerPoint, and it certainly isn't checking the box. You come to one of our courses, and you're going to get a lot of engagement. We're going to do a lot of group exercises, et cetera, et cetera. And our philosophy and our saying is that, you know what, the education doesn't stop in the classroom. You take it back to your department and definitely use it as much as possible. Then we have the Titan Group, a professional investigations. Look, if you're looking for someone to do complex, real, precise investigations, whether they're going to be internal affairs of police matters, firefighter matters, any type of workplace type of investigations, get a hold of the Titan Group as well. As you can see, I have these coins from Code 4 products, any type of coins, patches, badges, or any of that sort, get a hold of Code 4 products. And last but not least, Code 7 Coffee, man. You know what? I had to bring them on board because I know Gene and myself and probably every single police officer that I know has to drink coffee. You got to have a cup, definitely when you leave roll call, and you definitely got to have a cup when you're working graves. That's just the way we roll. Code 7 Coffee, you got to have it. They have a whole bunch of different flavors. So, without further ado, do I call you doctor, or are we okay with just Gene?
I think we've known each other long enough now. You don't have to call me doctor. So thank you for asking. That's very professional of you.
It is. I just, now that I'm thinking about it, are we in an operating room with, stethoscope and all that good stuff? Or, what kind of doctor are you really?
Yeah, I'm just going to stick to reading books and writing articles, and never going to diagnose anybody with anything. And I'm just going to leave it at that. If somebody asked me to diagnose them, I probably would, and then charge just a lot of money for it.
As humorous as that may sound, we are going to get into that, and I appreciate it because education's huge. I do know you've done so much in terms of leadership. I know we're going to have a little conversation about EI. I am so really in tune with that. And, I'm going to ask you questions as to why I suppose emotional intelligence is not in the forefront as it relates to. For me, I think what I'm going to ask you later on is about recruitment. I think it's super important. But we got to start off with the first segment, man. So let's get right to it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, rate the importance of internal affairs in a police department and why.
Has anybody ever not said 10 to this?
You know what? I had a guess, say a 7, and I try to figure out. We did a class with Savage Training Group up north, and they actually said a 7.5. One group said 7.5, and I think by the time we finished day 2, we bumped it up to. No, they gave me a 9.5. So almost a 10. So
it's a 10 all the way. But when I say 10, I'm not ranking it number 10 because it's the most important part of a police department. It's just a standard. It's a non-negotiable. You have to have it. You got to have the right people in the unit. They got to be highly trained. They got to be highly motivated. So it's a 10, hands down, all day. But there's so many aspects of a police department that I would rate a 10. You know what I mean? Like your health and wellness initiatives, your peer support teams, those kind of things are also a 10. But internal affairs, absolutely, it's got to be a 10.
Yeah, man. You know what? I had one of my guests say it best, man. It's the necessary evil, man. And I know we call it the dark side, and we have this, all these type of, nicknames, and, it's got a negative stigma, which is one of several reasons why I decided to bring this podcast and make it what it is internal affairs, is because a lot of people have, a certain perception. Sometimes this assignment is misunderstood. And more important than anything, we talk about transparency and leadership, and we'll get into all that. Let me ask you this, Gene. Finish this sentence for me. As an internal affairs investigator, my job is to what?
Yeah, it's another good one. I would say uphold the integrity of the badge. There's so many situations that police officers get into, and you even see it nowadays, right? Like there's a body-worn camera video that gets put out to the media, and it looks awful, right? But the public doesn't have the same training that you and I have gone through, and when it comes down to human factors and focus of attention, and actually talking to the officers and what they experience during these situations, right? So we're here to uphold the integrity of the badge, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent. So somebody does something wrong, you better bet your ass that I'm going to investigate it. And if they got to be disciplined, then they're going to be disciplined. But in the same token, on the same opposite end of the spectrum, if somebody says that an officer did something and they really didn't do it, well, guess what? I'm going to do just as thorough, if not more of a thorough investigation to uphold that side of it too.
Yeah, and you know what? It comes with a little bit of bias. Let me ask a follow-up question to that. What kind of traits would you want out of a internal affairs investigator? What characteristics?
I mean, I'm not gonna say the obvious ones of like trustworthy and all that kind of stuff. I need a highly motivated individual that is very secure in themselves, right? I do not want somebody in internal affairs who's just using it for a platform to get promoted. I don't need somebody in there that's using it to almost like feel valued themselves, and now they have more power over people kind of stuff.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I need people who are firmly secure and feel valued already. And that's who I want in internal affairs for sure.
Oh, no, absolutely. Empowerment and entitlement, this is not the place to be. I totally agree. Sometimes people say, hey, I just want to go to internal affairs because I'm going to get weekends off and a flexible work schedule. And, and then here you are at, you work 6 a.m., you work a 4-10, right? 4 days a week, 10 hour shifts. And you come in and work at 6, you're going to be off at 4. And at 3:58, they're just out the door. And you're just like, well, look, man, there's a call out. You just never know. You never know what you're going to get. And maybe you can share, from your experience in these small departments, because we are going to go a trip down memory lane. It's more than just IA. I'm sure you got other duties as well.
Yeah, well, speaking about like working a regular shift, I mean, we were talking earlier, but I got called out at 3:00 this morning because we had an officer involved shooting. So, it's like when I was back in detectives, I did 7 years in our criminal investigations unit, just getting called out all the time. Now, it doesn't happen as often in professional standards, but you still got to be ready, you know what I mean, at the drop of a hat to get called out and be on your game and go investigate things.
Yeah, absolutely. No, definitely. Thank you for sharing that, man. So look, you ever wonder, now that we're in this type of a function, why do they call it like the Rat Squad and all these nicknames, man? What do you think that comes from? Just curious.
Yeah, I think that's getting better, right? So I think there's definitely more transparency now. Listen, I think back in the day, like old school internal affairs, there was a lot more maliciousness. I think there was a lot more, hey, we're just going to mess with these guys. I think that does not go over well with cops in general, are type A personalities. Then you take type A personalities and you put them in an even more empowered position in internal affairs, and then they start messing with people. Listen, dude, I've heard those stories like, you make people, basically you treat them like a suspect, you know what I mean? You don't really tell them what's going on, and then you bring them in, you're kind of skirting around the Bill of Rights and that kind of stuff. Like, I can testify this, like the 3 years that I've been here with professional standards, we really don't mess with people.
Yeah.
We really try to make them as comfortable as possible. We know the stuff they're going through is nerve-wracking.
Yes.
Like when a citizen or an internal complaint comes in, your job's on the line, man. Like this is no joke. And I respect that. And I'm not gonna dilly-dally around with that investigation.
Yeah.
And depending on how big the investigation is, we typically do not take more than 30 days to get done a full investigation. Like we move through them very rapidly.
That's awesome, man. That's good to know, man. I mean, you said it best. Things are getting better, and we're becoming more transparent. And you're right. I think back in the days, decades for that, we just go off on this power trip and we hide the ball and we make you feel like a suspect. And, I couldn't agree with you more. Okay, man. Now we're on to the next segment. This is one of my favorite, man. A trip down memory lane. I got to get to know you a little bit. So what I know is, let's see, the Academy in 2006. And then you went to Wildwood PD in New Jersey in 2008, cold. Maryland State Police Department in 2010, cold.
Yeah.
And now we're at Newcastle County PD in 2011, present, cold.
Yep.
Well, according to you, 40 degrees. You're getting ready to put some sunblock, which is very look for us over here, man. Comes 60 and below. Well, we're complaining big time. So, let me ask you this: tell me about the Academy.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm Norwegian, man. I'm built for this cold. So.
You landed in the perfect place.
Yeah. So the first academy I went through, so for Wildwood, so I don't know how it works out west, but we have what's called seasonal police officers here. So a lot of the shore towns, they'll just hire young 18-year-old kids like I was back in the day. You go through a very quick, accelerated police academy. I think it was only 8 or 9 weeks.
Okay.
And you basically just work through the summertime. And you're a full-time police officer. You have a badge and a gun, and you work alongside the other, full-time guys. But dude, those were the 2 best years of my law enforcement career by far. And they told us that when we were there. They used to tell us, listen, these are going to be the best summers of your life. And of course, we were all just jonesing to go get hired somewhere else, go get full-time somewhere.
Right.
They were spot on, man. Looking back, we had so much fun, and it was such a cool opportunity to be 18, 19 years old and be a police officer. It was incredible.
Wow. And then, so from there we went to Wildwood. What's that? Was it Wild like you thought it was, or like the name of the actual police department, or tell me?
Yeah, Wildwood's pretty crazy. I mean, it's a shore town, so it's a very popular shore town in New Jersey.
Okay.
You get people all over the world that come there on summer break, and it's just mobbed with people nonstop.
Okay.
It was a good time though. It was good.
Help me with my geography. Is there anywhere near what's that, Atlantic City, where they have gambling, or how far is it from there?
Yep. Yeah, so it's like 30 minutes from Atlantic City.
Okay.
It's on that side of New Jersey. Yep, they're all those shore towns are right next to each other. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, I like that. Maryland State Police, 2010.
Yeah, dude, that academy was incredible. So I went through another academy with them. So that was about 7 months long.
Yeah.
That's a residential academy. You got to live there. And, they have a really cool thing there in Maryland where they don't tell you where you're going to be stationed, but you have to have residency in the state prior to graduating. So they could put you anywhere in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from New Jersey, and they could put you anywhere in the state. So I had to team up with a bunch of other guys who were out-of-staters.
Okay.
We all got a house together on the eastern shore of Maryland, and then we just kind of like hope for the best. Like, I hope they don't put me out in Western Maryland somewhere. You know what I mean? We kind of got lucky. So I was stationed down in Salisbury, Maryland. So it was about an hour and a half drive each way during those first couple of years. But MSP was incredible, man. That's a fantastically run organization, super squared away. A lot of great troopers there, and I learned a lot. I had some of my early leadership lessons still hold true today and came from those days in Maryland because, where I worked in Salisbury, it's called Wycomico County.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's only 3, maybe 4 troopers for the entire county.
Okay.
So you had to become very self-sufficient. Your backup was not going to be coming anytime soon. So you had to immediately just become a really confident individual and be willing to like work by yourself and be self-sufficient.
And the state police, how big is it, sworn?
I think Maryland State Police, they're probably around 4,000, somewhere around there.
Oh wow, okay, so yeah, it's a decent size, because and I ask, was there a lot of opportunities besides being a trooper? I would imagine you're doing a lot of you're in the highways and traffic enforcement and that sort. Because you ended up in Newcastle, and you're going to tell me why. You left, but did you see yourself at a lot of opportunities at Maryland State Police, or what caused you to just say, you know what, I'm going to take off and go to Newcastle?
Yeah, definitely would have been a lot of great opportunities. Honestly, the only downside with Maryland is it's a pretty big state. It's very big, like east to west, or a lot of different barracks. But let's say you're stationed down in Salisbury, which is down by the shore, right? That's on the East Coast.
Okay.
And you now want to go to like CID, you want to go do investigations, where you're gonna get shipped out to like Baltimore somewhere, and you're gonna go work out there. So, a lot of great opportunities, but you're gonna have to move around quite a bit. But honestly, the only reason I left, and this was like, this is like the first big compromise of my marriage, is I met my wife. We knew we were gonna get married. So she's a school teacher in New Jersey, and New Jersey has this really awesome rule where if you're a state employee, you can't live outside of the state. So all of her family's from New Jersey, all my family's from New Jersey, and that was kind of like the first big thing. Like, all right, well, she's not going to move to Maryland. I got to go find somewhere else. And even better is New Jersey was moving over to a 30-year pension. And I knew I probably didn't want to do this job for 30 years, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah.
So then I found Newcastle County PD, which is in Delaware, 20-year pension, decent sized organizations, about 415 sworn officers.
Okay.
And a lot of great room for improvement, and you can live wherever you want.
Nice. Now, I know I'm going to sound a little dumb, but I would imagine New Jersey is close to Delaware. I know it's way up there. I know Maine, and of course I know Hartford, Connecticut. I know where Connecticut is because Dan Patrick is my favorite. And, he's got his studio out there. And so I would imagine, so you're from Jersey, it's not far from Newcastle. Or you guys just ended up, your whole family probably lives somewhere in Newcastle. Is that correct?
No, so we actually live in Jersey. So
okay.
It's a 15-minute drive.
Oh, okay. There you go.
We're Delaware, New Jersey, we're connected by a couple different bridges, but I would say, so we have 415 sworn officers. I think there's 100 of us that live in New Jersey.
Okay. Yeah, I don't mean to sound like, I'm trying to figure out, what the East Coast is really like, because as you're telling me this story, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I know those little states way up there, and I have no clue. And I will remain and stay true that no matter where, it's going to be cold. So we'll just move on. Now let's go to the next segment, the IA story. Look, man, I'm going to leave the floor up to you, and you can just kind of let me preface by saying there is so many different aspects of internal affairs that you and I can have a discussion about. Normally, a guest will tell me about a story, where we can get some lessons learned and some takeaways from whatever that IA is. Why don't you just kind of share with us maybe the functions or the challenges that you see with discipline, one, two, and maybe you can also kind of just share with us, what can we do to better practice internal affairs complaint investigations? I'll leave the floor up to you.
Yeah, totally. So I'll just kind of give a brief little overview of how internal affairs works with our department, right? So there's 3 of us in the office. It's actually a pretty small unit. There's 2 sergeants, so I'm a sergeant, and then 1 lieutenant. And we investigate, any and all citizen complaints, any major internal complaint that comes in. So that could be just like let's say an officer gets involved in a pursuit. It's a terrible pursuit. They wind up crashing and hurting somebody or something like that. Like we would investigate that. Now the road supervisors, they still investigate complaints from time to time as well. But we directly report to the chief of police. There's no in between.
Okay.
There's no captain involved. There's no lieutenant colonel right now. So everything goes through the chief of police. So we have a very strong relationship with him. When he became chief of police, I had been in internal affairs for only like 6 months. So I've had about 2.5 years now working with him. Okay. In these investigations. But here's what I'll say about internal affairs. And this was like the big eye-opening thing for me. I used to watch body-worn camera videos. I used to see things happen. I used to listen to statements, and I used to make these immediate judgments on, I would have done this in that situation, right? I would have handled that totally differently. Or you watch a body-worn camera and it looks terrible. And I don't know what kind of trainings you guys have out west, probably similar to the stuff we go to, Force Science Institute, reading body language, all that kind of stuff. But listen, when I watch a body-worn camera video, so the officer involved shooting that happened this morning, right? Again, I won't go into too many details about it, but I don't even watch the body-worn camera video. When I go in, that's like one of the last things I do, right? So I want to listen to all the witness interviews. I want to go out and look at the scene. The last thing I'm going to do is watch the body-worn camera video, because as soon as I watch that body-worn camera video, I'm putting my own thoughts, feelings, and emotions and my experiences into that, and I'm going to be looking for things and trying to make sense of things. And that's one of the biggest things I've learned. Like, if I could put a percentage on the body-worn camera video, listen, I think it's great, and it's a great tool. But that thing's about 15, maybe 20% of the whole picture. You know what I mean? Like the officer's statement, the witness statements, all the other evidence that goes into it, that's what's really important. You know what I mean? And that's been the big shift, right? So past generations, when we first got body-worn cameras, people were just watching these things and just dinging the officers, just disciplining them, like based on the body-worn camera, not even interviewing them, like that kind of stuff. Like that stuff doesn't fly anymore. And luckily our command staff, like our chief of police, and we have an entire unit. It's called the Use of Force Review Unit. These are subject matter experts in use of force. So we work hand in hand with them, and any use of force that comes in, they review all of them, and we get to sit down with them and get their experience, their input on that. And it's like this team effort. So I don't know if you guys have anything like that out west. You guys have any like subject matter experts that you would work with for use of force cases?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, ours is, we can definitely get into ours, but I'm so curious about yours. And if I may ask a follow-up question, with body-worn video, are we saying that in your experience in the past, did officers make statements and did not watch body-worn video, or how does that work?
Yeah, so typically for like an officer involved shooting, right? The officers will not watch their body-worn camera.
Okay.
They'll give a statement about the incident, and then they'll be given an opportunity to watch it afterwards if they want to.
Okay.
Because what we have found is, and obviously you can probably attest to this, is when you go through an incident, right, your focus of attention is going to be so narrowly focused.
Yeah.
But the body worn camera picks up everything.
Mm-hmm.
So when an officer goes through that incident, they remember very fine details, right?
Yes.
And then they go to watch the body worn camera footage. And let's say there's things on the body worn camera footage that they don't really remember.
Right.
Well, now they almost feel obligated to make an excuse for that or come up with some reason and talk about that during their interview. And we totally want to nix that. We just want to know, what did you experience in the moment? What do you remember? Right. And that's what we want their statement to be based on. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. You definitely want perception, as opposed to the corrupt mind is the way they phrase it. Hey, don't watch body worn video because it can corrupt the mind. It sounds so sophisticated. In my opinion, it's a little scary because I am a big proponent of watching body worn video before we give compel statements. But you know what? We can say that for another conversation.
Yeah.
What I'm more interested in is, how about just a public complaint? You're working patrol as a sergeant and you go to the local 7-Eleven. I don't think they have 7-Elevens over there, but we have a lot of 7-Elevens over here. So
of course we have 7-Elevens.
Hey, man,
they're all over.
I just keep thinking Delaware is, so small. My bad, bro. And so here you are getting a cup and someone comes up to you and says, hey, you know what, Sarge, I saw these two officers over there. They were dealing with some individual, I think it was a male, and they just like threw him up against the wall, And so here we are, and you can pretty much tell that it's alleged misconduct. And here you begin to do an intake, and you're the intake sergeant for alleged misconduct. Are we allowing the officers to, of course, they're going to get representation and all that, but are we watching body-worn video before we get the compel statement, or what's going on?
Yeah, I think for something like that, it's kind of a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
The only one we have like a hard line on right now is those officer-involved shootings. And that's just something that the Attorney General's office that we work with, they're on board with that, all the attorneys. So for that kind of incident, yeah, they'll probably watch their body-worn camera before that incident. Typically, a lot of that lower level stuff, we give them the option. We say, hey, if you want to watch your body-worn camera, you're more than welcome to do so before you come in for the interview. And most people do, to be honest with you, for those kinds of incidents. And that's totally fine.
Oh, absolutely. If I was, their representative, I would tell you, we're watching this until you feel so comfortable, and scrub it back and forth until you feel completely comfortable to give your compel statement. That's good to know. And yes, in terms of the OIS, there is different practices, and your practice over in your department is no any different than the majority of the nation. It just so happens that my beloved LAPD is completely different for various reasons. And you know what? I don't want to segue too much into those reasons, but I can tell you that one of those reasons is our union, our league, has a hard stand on no. We're going to have our clients, I guess in this case it'll be the shooting officer, right, to watch body-worn video before they give compel statements. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and there's pros and cons, and, we can, as a matter of fact, when we have our course at Savage Training Group for day 2 of OIS investigations, my partner, James Tacchini, who happens to be from up north in Northern California, is completely different. He's in the same mindset and practice as what you just explained. And we have a little fun with, we create a little controversy. And here's the deal, you know what? It's not right or wrong. Each practice has its good points and its bad points. And you know what? It's totally up to the powers to be as to exactly what it is that you need to do, especially when you're talking about critical incidents like OISs.
Yeah, but that's the beautiful thing about us having this conversation now. Like just the law enforcement community in general, like we can have this conversation. We do it one way, you do it one way. I see why you do it your way. You see why we do it our way. And then we can learn things about it and, adapt over time. Like that's the beautiful thing. Yep. And you said it perfectly. It doesn't mean one way is right or wrong. It's just a different way to do it. That's all.
No, it's a different practice, and there's policies with that. In the all S's that I've rolled out to. Until this very day, we practice with, hey, we're going to watch body-worn video. And internal affairs is completely, with that, considering, like you said, there's force science, there's data, research, and a whole bunch of experts that feel that the perception is super powerful by you expressing exactly what you were thinking while you were thinking about pulling the trigger and when you pull the trigger. And that's super important. I totally get that, but, we can move on and figure out, because you and I are going to talk about this for days. And I want to know, in terms of an IA story as well, is there something like back when you were in, I don't know, either Wildwood or American State Police, it just stood out to you? You're like, that's just no way, that this partner of mine got an IA and it just seemed to be BS, or, they kind of deserved it, Anything along those lines that you can share?
I can share my own personal stories, dude. I've had, when I was back in Wildwood, I mean, I was an 18 and a half-year-old kid, and in my first summer, I had an IA for excessive use of force. And I was like, oh, what? Like, yeah, we use force a lot, but it was an immediate, and listen, that dude treated me great, and I was grateful for that experience, but I was terrified. Like, I vividly remember hearing that complaint come in and being like, I remember exactly what I did. And this was before body cameras.
Of course.
I was actually a little more worried because I was like, oh man, what's this guy saying?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But no, trust me, I had plenty of internal affairs complaints. They would always throw me for a loop. You know what I mean? I would always be like, are you joking right now? Or I had a buddy of mine actually in Wildwood where, again, we're 18, 19 years old at the time. And the person called in a complaint and said that he was drunk on duty. And he was my partner, like I'm working with him. So I got pulled into that IA investigation because I'm a potential witness to him being drunk.
That's right.
I'm like, we're not even legally allowed to drink, but we're also police officers. So no, not, it was just like a crazy,
one of
those things, but that stuff happens.
You kind of remind me of when I asked you earlier, or we were having this discussion about character traits of being an IA investigator. Man, you couldn't pick a better one for someone. Hey, I went through one. I would love to have an IA investigator that has gone through, especially one that was just super, super like complex, and they just, I suppose they just drag you through the mud, only to come to find out that you've been exonerated for, all your actions. That would be a good trait to have as an IA investigator, I guess, in my opinion.
Actually, so when I first came on with Newcastle County, I got pulled into internal affairs, and it was more like I was a witness officer. This lady more or less said that we illegally went into her house, illegal search and seizure, and I basically just went in there as a witness officer. Kind of turned out that I could have done things better, and I actually got sustained on a violation. I got sustained for, it wasn't illegal search and seizure, but it was failure to get written consent to go into the house, right? So whatever, it was like a written reprimand. It is what it is. But I went through the process. I got disciplined, and I was like, okay, well, I'm alive. It happened. I could have done things better. I'm almost glad that I went through this process as a young officer to be like, okay, well, thanks for telling me about that. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Accountability goes a long way, man. Absolutely, we can learn and definitely let the young ones know. Hey, man, if you're involved in this kind of circumstance, I'm gonna tell you this is what you should be doing, or or not be doing, for that matter. Okay, let's move on to our next segment, man. You know what? This one, it's worst and best, right? So I always want to start off with worst because we want to leave on a good note. So. You know what, Gene? Tell me, man, worst incident in your career that you were involved or witnessed.
What do you think? That's a good one. Unfortunately, too many to tell so many stories. We all have terrible incidents. But the first one that comes to my mind, this is a terrible incident. I think I was a detective, Yeah, because I think I handled the death investigation. But long story short, this was a 12-year-old girl got into an argument with her mother, and she basically wanted to prove a point to her mom. So she grabbed a belt from her brother's room, went over to the neighbor's front yard, and herself in the front yard in a tree at 12 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. So that one, like, that's one of those ones. And it's nice that I can talk about this case now. That
Yeah.
used to bother me a lot
Of course.
back in the day. But I've been able to talk about it a lot now. And just when I went to the hospital with the mother, so I remember sitting in the hospital with the mother. I was out on scene for the incident, but sitting, talking to the mother, and this is going to sound terrible, but she was almost relieved in the sense of they had so many problems with the daughter, the 12-year-old, and she had attempted suicide so many times, went through so many things, but to sit there with that mother, and again, let me think, dude, I was probably 27, 28 years old, not married, no kids. Like, how am I possibly going to relate to this woman?
Yeah.
But, that's why. So, one of the other assignments that I have, so I'm our peer support team coordinator,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of like an interesting dynamic because I work in internal affairs, but I'm also the peer support team coordinator.
Yeah.
It's kind of a weird dynamic, but it's something that I'm super passionate about. And that's when I started getting passionate about peer support because I had an officer reach out to me after that incident from like a peer support standpoint, and I needed that. Like, I wasn't going to tell anybody, I'm a big macho 27-year-old kid, like,
Right.
I'm good, man. Listen, nobody should ever have to see a 12-year-old commit.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
That's why I got so heavily involved in the peer support side of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like top three for me on
Man.
incidents that I've been to that were it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy.
Yeah, no one wins with that. Certainly not you for experiencing something like that and having that in your mind that carries you, for the rest of your life. The family is a tragedy. The community is a tragedy. No, it's just a no win for no one. And thank you for sharing that, man. It's just another reason to have this platform, to have this podcast, is so that people can understand that what we go through, it's not. It's not all peaches and strawberries and unicorns, man. And there's dark moments, and those dark moments at times has an impact on our personal life, certainly our professional life, and for many other reasons. And I thank you for sharing that, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
But let's go with Bess, bro. Talk to me. I know there's something good. Look, man, you are super accomplished, very decorated, and there's got to be a Bess somewhere there, either an incident or an achievement or something of that type. What do you think?
Yeah. So, and actually, you and I talked about this on the phone the other night a little bit, but so I spent about 6, 7 years in our criminal investigations unit. Most of that time I spent in the homicide unit. That's kind of been my most fun I've had as a police officer, other than that time I spent in Wildwood. But we had this murder happen. It was a double homicide. There was a 15-year-old girl that was and a 30-something-year-old male. So long story short, our patrol units showed up to the scene. 15-year-old victim had been the shotgun, point blank range, couple rounds, and then the male half had also been shot right in the back of the head with a slug round from a shotgun. And I remember getting the phone call from my lieutenant at the time because I was up for the next homicide. So I get the phone call, and I remember her saying to me, like, hey, listen, you better solve this one. Like, it's a 15-year-old girl. And not that the other guy wasn't important, but when you start having young kids, like teenagers, being victims of you gotta roll with that one, man. Like,
totally.
you gotta get on it.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm here to tell you, 48 hours went by, like the iconic 48 hours, and we had nothing. Nothing. No suspects, no leads, no nothing. Well, my buddy of mine, arguably one of the best detectives we have, he's now a sergeant, still probably the best investigator we have. he just had this idea. We had these like shotgun shells at the crime scene, right? So he's like, listen, I'm just gonna start going around to Cabela's and Walmart and see who has purchased these shells at any point in time. Well, lo and behold, he identifies somebody who bought those shells during the off season. Like, it was not hunting season, so it was an unusual kind of time, right?
Uh-huh.
So based off of that, we got some video surveillance from the Walmart. We paired that up with some video surveillance that we actually had from the street, a couple houses. We tied that back to a car. So we identify a suspect. We bring it back to our headquarters. I do an 11 and a half hour interview with him. 11 and a half hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And this guy is a legitimate psychopath. So he loved crime drama TV. He loved being in the interview room with me. And we couldn't get him to come off on anything. So we had to let him go. We know this guy's our suspect, right? We had a ton of evidence against him. We know he's the guy, and we got to let him walk out the door. So then, like, a couple of days goes by, maybe around the week, we get some more evidence. We get him to come back in. We got to let him go again. So, like, this is now people are getting a little upset, right? Because we know this is the guy. You got a 15-year-old, you got another 30-something-year-old guy.
Mm-hmm.
We finally get him in for the final time. He never confesses to it. We get enough to charge him. He winds up taking it to trial. And the jury deliberated for 3 days on that one. 3 days. There was one jury member who just couldn't bring themselves to convict this individual. And finally, you know, they eventually did. But sitting in the courtroom, right, I'm there with the prosecutor, sitting at the table, the jury finally comes in, and hearing them give that guilty verdict, that is, and having the family there, right? And it was emotional, and everybody was just finally glad to see some justice being served for this case. Like, that's my number one. I'll never forget that moment. And just all the hard work of all the detectives, but that went into that case. Like, man, I lost some years of my own life on that case.
No, totally.
You know what I mean? Trying to bring that to justice.
That's awesome, man. You know what? I would imagine as a homicide detective, that's got to be the ultimate prize, man. The ultimate win, the best. I couldn't agree with you more. Hey, man, you know what? Thanks for sharing all that. Look, we're about to wrap it up, but before we do that, talk to me, man. We got Reid Solutions. I know you got that going on. We have stuff going on Police One. Tell me what you got going on, and not me. Tell the audience, man, what's going on.
Yeah, all right, here's what I got. So I have a 10-part video series out on Police One. It's called Next Gen Leadership, Solutions for Today's Police Supervisors. So there's about 2 or 3 of the videos already out there, but it'll be out there forever. They're 3 to 5 minute little videos on all the things that I think are critical for leaders to know, specifically at that like kind of frontline supervisor rank.
Yeah.
A lot of it's about emotional intelligence, talking about self-awareness, managing our emotions, making connections with people. Also write a bunch of articles on Police One. Again, a lot of stuff on emotional intelligence. But with Reid Solutions, this is a training company that I created. I think I've always had an entrepreneurial kind of mindset, and I've always, you know, wanted to get a message out to people.
Yes.
So the fact that I have, you know, a master's degree in education, I got a PhD in criminal justice. I wrote the book on emotional intelligence. It's called Police Leadership Redefined, the EQ Advantage. So that's out there. You can get that on Amazon. But that's what I'm doing with Reid Solutions. I'm getting out there to police entities and talking to leaders about how they can implement emotional intelligence to really get the most bang for their buck and connect with their people and bring this culture of policing back up again.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for that. You know what? I just want to touch real quick, and I don't know why, but a lot of police academies, I can tell you here, my beloved LAPD, and someone might leave a comment or maybe even call me or text me or say, no, Marlon, we do teach EI to police recruits. I don't think we do. I don't think it fits in the post-certification, you know, because, you know, you have to have a certain amount of hours for the state of California peace officer standards and training. And there's just so much given to you. But for whatever reason, man, they just don't do EI. And EI is just huge, man. And I don't know about you, but I'm a big proponent of having EI early in your career? Maybe if you can't fit it into the curriculum in the police academy, you got to do it like in the first year, man. What do you think?
Yeah, here's what I'll say about emotional intelligence. And again, I could talk all day about this.
Yes.
I have an 8-hour course on it. But any leadership situation that you give me, and again, I don't care if you're a formal leader or informal, it doesn't matter. Whether you had a success or a failure, I can fit it into emotional intelligence somehow, some way. So emotional intelligence provides the perfect framework to see where you're at in your leadership journey. So emotional intelligence is self-awareness, knowing yourself, self-management, knowing how to manage your own emotions, social awareness, like being able to connect with people around you, and then relationship management, like managing those relationships over time. I don't care what situation you give me. If you learn how to master those 4 things, you're golden, man. You're golden. And it's so easy to identify,
Right.
you know, if you lack self-awareness and you're not connecting with people, oh, well, now you have this framework of emotional intelligence. Okay, I can just work on these little areas here.
I like it, man. I'm digging it. You know, so basically what you're telling me is you and I go to some gala or something like that. You're going to work the room, doctor. I would imagine so.
Work a room.
Yeah, we're working the room, man. You got to read the
I'll
room. You know how to read the room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So do I, man. But you know what? I'm going to take you up one day. I know somehow, some way you and I are going to connect, and hopefully we'll end up somewhere, reading the room and having some fun, man. Hey, listen, it's been a pleasure. How do we get a hold of you? I know get a hold of you on LinkedIn. Where else?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's reidtrainingsolutions.com. I just got that thing nice and all fancied up, so it's a nice new website on there. You can actually get a free download of my book on there. You can get one of the first chapters on there. So I highly recommend, like if you guys really just kind of want to dabble in emotional intelligence, go to my website, reidtrainingsolutions.com, get a free copy of the book, and then you can hit me up and have me come to your organization, do some trainings. And yeah, LinkedIn is really the best kind of mechanism to reach out to me. And then I'm also on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome, bro. Hey, listen, you ever come down here to sunny LA, I can guarantee you 80 degrees at the beach, bro.
Just give me some sunscreen.
You're definitely gonna need sunscreen when you come out here, brother. And I'll definitely come see you soon. Hopefully, you know, we can meet up and maybe get some training up there for all this IA stuff, because I know not everybody is a bright mind like you there, Dr. Reid. Hey, thank you so much, bro. And you know what? We're going to wrap it up. What can I say, man? I'll see you soon, for sure.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. And on that note, please, please, please be safe out there, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.